In this video, I want to look at a fringe scientist and experimenter who uses an entire world to create something unique and hyper-intelligent, and ask what he might intend to do with it. This is about a Necron from the Twice Dead King reign by Nate Crowley. Now, the scientist in question is from a group that created the weapons that killed the Catan, and the main character we follow is going to meet this conclave of crypteks. So welcome friends to another 40k video. The planet Carnotite did not have a surface as such. It was entirely covered in a churning sea of liquid metal, stirred through with radioactive ores and bubbling with convection currents of unfathomable complexity. Even to Necrons, this was a hostile place. The world had once been green sea and white sand, until Armhet arrived there. When they arrived at the site, a hand emerged from the molten sea. It was black and clagged all over with cooling magma, and as it groped from the edge of the crust it shook, as if in great pain. The hand dug taloned fingertips into the shore, and was soon followed by a second, juddering with effort. A hunched, gnarled figure heaved itself up onto the roasting slag of the beach, and lay there, quivering with exhaustion. It was Necron, or it had been. The thing's head was enveloped in some kind of growth, which Altix took at first to be congealed metal from the sea, until clumps of slag fell away, and he saw the cables which connected it to another assembly around the creature's torso. This Armhet is not particularly imposing after all, thought Altix. Then a sinuous black tendril, as thick as Altix's waist, snaked up from the magma beyond the shore, and coiled itself around the wretched creature's face. The tendril's shape was constantly in motion, so its size was hard to judge exactly, but it was at least 3 times his own considerable height. This being the one who created that experiment we are working towards, is Armhet, the warlock of Carnotite. He speaks to Altix, the character we follow in this novel. "Did you know we're not in the presence of another king, Altix?" said the warlock, as it rifled through his mind. "I did not," he forced out, keeping his voice as level and as free from feeling as Dujo Seras would have done in his place. Shab called the warlock, and the crypto thralls scrabbled towards them over the ragged surface of the slag. "My assistant here was once called Warhammer 40k. He was pharaoh of the Nuthian dynasty, and he once called Carnotite his crown world, although you'll find no records of his kingdom now." Shab crawled forwards until it was squatting on its haunches before Altix, and he could not help but meet the gaze of its single blank ocular. Warhammer 40k was kind enough to provide patronage for our enclave of scholars, wasn't he, Mentep? His coffers grew fat from the use of our gifts, but in the end I required the use of his resources, all of them. In the spirit of sentimentality that so often obstructed his brilliance, Mentep argued for clemency, of course. The warlock paused, and when he spoke again, it was in Mentep's voice, as if it was replaying an echo from long ago. "For the Triarch's sake, Armhet," cried the echo of the cryptek as it carried on the wind, "I cannot stop you absorbing the assets of Nuthian into your work. I fear I cannot stop you absorbing the fabric of the world itself at this point, and I regret nothing more than delivering it to you. But you do not need their people. Let them go. Let them be free, Lector Priest. Or at least destroy them, I beg you, though do not subject them to that." "But you see, Altix, I did need their people," said the warlock, "and I needed the king too." Shab was the last project, in fact, that Mentep worked on, his parting gift to me, in exchange for my permission to break from the conclave. But I suppose you don't remember that now, do you, Mentep? The old engromancer gazed through the heat-twisted air with deep confusion in his oculars, and the warlock, still looming just to Altix's side, extended a tendril towards the crypto thrall's face. "Shall we see what has become of the old King Warhammer 40k? After all these years inside this prison you made of his body, with a curling of a tendril tip, Armhet did something the crypto thrall's canoptek shell had not been ready for, and Shab collapsed, convulsing on the floor. Its vocal actuators stuttered to life, and though they were distorted with static from aeons of disuse, the sound that escaped was unmistakable. It was a scream of the most profound anguish, the perpetual, unwavering howl of a mind that had consumed itself entirely. With another flick of the warlock's tendril, the sound vanished, and the crypto thrall returned obediently to its haunches. Like nothing had happened. As Altix and Mentep leave the planet, neither spoke for the duration of the ascent. And here we get a clear hint that I will speculate on for what this planet could be. When they were 3 leagues up, Altix turned to take one last look at the blighted world, and saw that the raft they had landed on had already broken up, sinking into the glowing currents without a trace. His oculars followed the storms across the molten swells, and for a moment he almost fancied they flickered in patterns like nodal arrays in conversation. As they rose from Carnotite's protean fury, Altix was seized by the dreadful, impossible notion that he was looking at a world on its way to becoming a mind. So a world mind of melted down and combined Necrons. Now the first thing I would say is the idea might just be an experiment for the sake of an experiment, to push boundaries and knowledge. But I'm going to try and think on a larger scale. If the Warlock is part of a conclave who created the Catan, killing weapons, what could this be in line with when thinking of that moment? That massive mind of processing power. It reminds me of the grave mind in Halo. This, on a simple, brief level, is the highest form of being that can be attained by the Flood, the consciousness of their entire species. From there it can coordinate incredibly high numbers of Flood, and can plan and strategize on a deeply complex level. It has in it the mind of everything it's ever absorbed, and so the world mind could be like that on a smaller scale, with super processing power. What could it be used for? Maybe to restore the Necrons to power, something like they were without the Catan influence, but keeping their bodies. With its supermind, could it absorb more into it at first? Maybe have several mental nodes? With all those thoughts, it could create new, unthought of avenues of technology, based on the already advanced tech the Necrons hold. 2. Could it predict the moves of their enemies? Offer 1,000,000 effective countermeasures? It could be a real game changer for the Necrons. What about if the intent of the Warlock was to create something more scientific? More in line with what the Conclave made previously, to not only enslave the Catan, but finish them off forever, and not deplete the Necrons' access to their energy, to somehow sever them from their connection to the galaxy, which is why they could not be killed, and to remove their minds, so they go from sentient beings to power sources, living vampires to electric powering light bulbs, a final vengeance to those who enslaved them. And a brief final idea, how could these multiple parts that make up the Megamind benefit the Silent King? Could it reverse biotransference, create a way to make living and fleshy bodies so that they can leave their artificial ones? And could they somehow be linked to souls? Even if they are new ones, we can only speculate. And if you like this video on 40k, then why not try this one? And if you've got any comments to make in the video, please drop me one down below. I'd be interested to see what you think about this little bit of lore. It's one of those little bits that it's not likely to be followed up on, but it's fun to read about, let you know about and speculate upon. So as I said, if you like this video on 40k, then why not try this one? And if you want a lot of videos on 40k, then why not try the playlist on the channel? There are 2. One is with everything and one focuses on the dark age of technology.